Hello, my name is Susan Blackland. I'm the author of Water Confidential, Witnessing Justice Denied, about the fight for safe drinking water in Indigenous and rural communities in Canada, and Water Justice, my latest book, What You Don't Know Could Kill You. We've had an inquiry from a reader, and I think there's a lot of people asking the same question. Her question was, why do we need to worry about asbestos cement pipes if the World Health Organization and Health Canada don't see a problem? Then there mustn't be a problem. When I was parenting 4 teenagers, I repeatedly asked them the same rhetorical question. If everyone you are with decide to run in front of a bus, are you going to follow or stop and think, maybe this isn't such a great idea? It's extremely hard today. There are so many issues. The feeling prevails that we cannot affect change. No Canadian wants to think that perhaps we cannot trust Health Canada or WHO, World Health Organization, or our politicians. It is easy to think they must be right. Who are we to think that ingesting asbestos fibers from asbestos cement water pipes could cause cancer? When Health Canada pesticide laws are an absolute sham compared to those in Europe or the UK, when they are compounded by a Prime Minister who declares the weak pesticide review process is no longer necessary, and furthermore decides that MPs can overrule any pesticide application based solely on economics, when a federal agency, the National Research Council, operated for 10 years, and when it closed its doors, the research was buried with the agency, research which indicated that ingested asbestos was carcinogenic, only to resurface and still be denied. When ingested asbestos has been proven to cause cancer by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the USA, since 1992, but it is ignored by Canadian government. And you learn that in 1992, the USA also closed the company that was polluting the Great Lakes with the asbestos. Yet Grassy Narrows First Nation have been subjected to mercury poisoning for decades, and no action has been taken to end the pollution. And many other First Nations live with devastating health issues due to big oil or fracking, LNG or mining for decades, but nothing changes. When abandoning asbestos cement pipes in the ground is against the law, but no government agency upholds the law. When one of Canada's most affluent communities, Qualicum Beach in BC, my home community, initiates contracts to maintain asbestos, but awards them to companies not approved to handle asbestos, and the work is subcontracted until innocent, impoverished day workers are hired to do the dirty work with no knowledge of the risk they are exposed to. When municipal governments don't apply for grants to remove asbestos cement water pipes, and municipal organizations like the Union of BC Municipalities or their other provincial counterparts, or the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, do nothing to educate or support the most significant challenge to all communities: how to build effective water treatment systems, how to deal with the overflow, literally, of sewage from these communities, and all the other issues pertaining to water. Yet they think it's a great idea to send municipal councillors to Vietnam to study how they handle waste. And asbestos sewage pipes are crumbling just like asbestos water pipes beneath the ground to leak raw sewage and asbestos fibers into the earth, with no accountability from any level of government. When Freedom of Information produces redacted documents, if you are lucky, but the lack of requested information suggests that Indigenous Services Canada do not require engineers or consultants to prove the efficacy of any system before they are paid for the work they do for First Nation communities. And then the same engineers are paid again a year or two later to fix what they didn't build right the first time. And Indigenous Services Canada have cozy relationships with certain charities, giving them millions of dollars annually, and coincidentally, those charities never advocate or speak out. And Prime Minister Carney declares the federal government will not protect source waters for Indigenous people, as though source waters only pollute and cause harm to Indigenous people. When First Nations drinking water is a federal responsibility and they ignore the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act or the Indigenous Rights to Water, when the Canada Water Agency is founded not to research or improve water treatment systems for First Nations in Canada, when scientists suggest that Canadians should ask their community leaders to provide safe drinking water because the federal government doesn't heed the research they funded, when the same scientists had to take water samples in the dark of night because if they had asked for permission, the answer would have been no, when provinces have weak and varied guidelines and do nothing to protect source waters, when bottled water companies are given as much water as they want at a very low cost, even depleting aquifers, or when municipal governments, Nanaimo Regional District, think it's a great idea to empty an aquifer while the community is on the most stringent level 4 water conservation to determine how much the aquifer holds to enable more development. And AI data centers are bulldozed into communities, and people are worried about losing their jobs or the amount of water they consume, unaware of how the water the AI data centers discharge is 4 to 6 degrees warmer and laden with PFAS. And AI data centers, like industry, have water licenses which give them priority to drinking water even if people have no water left to drink. And someone decides it's a good idea to cook solid human waste, Victoria, BC, and convince another community, Nanaimo, BC, to take it and spread it along the banks of the river or beneath wild clay and bag it to sell as fertilizer. And so many communities have so much sewage they don't know what to do with it, and when the heavy rains come, the waste treatment plants overflow, Winnipeg, into nearby rivers and creeks, polluting and killing the source waters. And Alberta allows big oil to dump what used to go into tailings ponds directly into the Athabasca River. And a physician calls authorities about the high incidence of cancers in First Nation communities, and Health Canada puts 12 lawyers to his one, and he almost loses everything to stand up for his patients. And 30 years later, another physician stands up and asks the same provincial government to study the health impacts of LNG and fracking due to the high incidence of cancers, especially among young children, that they are seeing in their patients. Just like when Monsanto persecuted Percy Schmeiser, and later it has been determined that Percy was right all along. When Walkerton resulted in Ontario implementing far more stringent water safety processes, but no other province adopts the same or even similar protections. Droughts, then forest fires, which is why my voice is the way it is today, then floods, evacuations, climate change is real, but the federal government defrays any climate action. When do you stop trusting government? Municipal, provincial, and federal? When do you begin to think, perhaps Health Canada has it wrong, perhaps WHO has it wrong? And when you hear the hummingbird story, a famous symbolic story told by Wangari Maathai, the Kenyan environmental activist and winner of the 2004 Nobel Peace Prize, she used this tale to explain her philosophy on personal responsibility and tackling massive global issues like climate change and deforestation. A huge forest was being consumed by a fire, and all the animals felt powerless and overwhelmed as they watched the destruction unfold before them. Something a little bit similar to what's going on in the world today and how most people are feeling. All except for one little hummingbird. Determined to do something about the fire, the hummingbird flew to the nearest stream and picked up a single drop of water in its tiny beak. It flew to the fire and dropped the water onto the flames. The hummingbird continued, flying up and down to the stream to gather more water, dropping it onto the fire as fast as it could. Despite the presence of larger animals like the elephant, who could bring more water with its big trunk, they all stood by helplessly, questioning the hummingbird's efforts. The other animals said things like, "What do you think you can do? You are too little. Your wings are too small. Your beak can only carry a tiny drop of water. That will not make an impact." Paying no attention to the discouragement, the hummingbird remained resolute and responded, "I may be small and insignificant, but I will always do the best I can." The hummingbird persisted with its efforts, undeterred by the enormity of the task and of the naysayers. Hopefully you now realize why we need to worry about asbestos cement pipes and so many other things that impact everyone having access to safe drinking water. Just because the World Health Organization and Health Canada don't see a problem does not mean there isn't a problem. Please take the time to be well informed. I invite you to begin watching the many videos, podcasts, and even more short blips with quotes from the experts. I am the messenger. I am not an expert. Learn from what is happening in the USA and other countries to avoid making the same mistakes and duplicate what they are doing proactively. Learn about biosolids, pesticides, PFAS or PFAs. Learn what water treatment systems can remove and what the great majority of systems cannot remove. Learn that the biggest challenge may not be access to safe drinking water, but the reality of too much sewage for every community. Learn that protecting source waters must be the critical first step towards protecting the environment as well as human health. I encourage you to visit the publication Watershed Sentinel, their online platform where you can read my article, Your Water, Your Vote, the questions candidates hope you won't ask, because you need to ensure that future politicians are informed and care enough to act. We need a lot more hummingbirds. I've been painting and drawing them furiously the last little while. Please sign and share the open letter writing campaign to Prime Minister Carney and the federal government, asking the government to protect our water, to protect our health. It's hosted by the National Council of Women Canada. Please visit their website, NCWC for National Council of Women Canada, NCWC Open Letter. Thank you for listening.